So whatever they're not getting from the sport, a good strength and conditioning program should give them that. Okay, so are they jumping and landing in their sport? Yes. Okay, actually, is that in a controlled setting? Do they know how to jump and land? And I had this conversation with you, Danny. I think a lot of times it's backwards. You wouldn't teach kids algebra in school and then teach them how to add. Well, in sport, we kind of do that. We chuck them in there and we go, look, jump around, do cutting movements, accelerate, de-accelerate, but we'd never actually teach them how to do that in a controlled environment. I think it's an important aspect for us to consider. And when I talk about fundamental movement patterns, so what sort of things should these youth athletes be doing? To keep it really simple, we're looking at lower body bilateral movements, so things like squats, squats, hinging, and bridging. Upper body pushing, so horizontal and vertical. Upper body pulling, horizontal and vertical. Anti-rotation, core bracing, things of that nature in terms of core training. Then we need to look at jumping, landing, and rebounding mechanics. Again, teaching those things. Throwing, grasping and catching. How to accelerate, how to de-accelerate, and then lower body unilateral movements as well, so single leg stuff. And in a nutshell, a good program should include all of that. Now, a strength conditioning coach would need to then be able to progress that accordingly, but this is what we should be offering to kids, and that's what they should be doing, so that we're kind of mitigating all those factors. Okay, just conscious of time. So this is the long-term athletic development model for boys, and I'll show you the girls ones after. So I'll explain this. It looks very confusing, but it's actually quite simple once explained. So you've got the chronological age at the top, so from there to there. You might be able to see it very well, but then I'll send the slides to you. You've got the age period, so early childhood, middle childhood, adolescence, adulthood. You've got their growth rate, so rapid growth, steady growth, adolescence spurt, and then decline in the growth, the rate of growth. The maturation status, so are they pre-PHB, circa post? The training adaptation, so what they're going to get from the training, and then these are the biomotors. So FMS stands for functional movement skills, so teaching them how to do all those movements, etc. You've got agility, speed, all of those things. The bigger the word, the more focus they should be having at that stage, essentially. That's what this is saying. Boys, I already said that boys are mature later than girls, and then the adaptation is different as well. So this is the female one. Now, what's important to recognise for female athletes is the risk of injury through, in terms of ACL injuries, due to their Q angle, so essentially their hips are a little bit wider, so what tends to happen is that, essentially what tends to happen is that female then comes inwards. So because the hips are wider, it's going to naturally do this in terms of their structure. So that puts them in a bit of a, we call it a not optimal or suboptimal position biomechanically, because the knees caving inwards, and it's already like this. So then we need to do a lot of work around that and teach them how to land effectively and strengthen all of the musculature around the hips and the knees. We need to consider menstrual cycles. Again, this could be, female training could be a whole nother topic. And then identifying the key differences, so they'll put on more fat mass, whereas boys will then put on more muscle mass. This is why also then girls can't, after a certain age, they shouldn't really be playing with playing football with the boys, essentially, because then there's too much of an unfair advantage where they'll go, actually, they've now got more testosterone, so it's an unfair advantage there. And then the psychological and the effects that it'll have on power, etc. Okay, so how can we help as coaches and parents? So monitoring maturity. It's going to be very difficult to do unless you're in an academy program. I try to do it with some of my athletes. It just takes a lot of time. And then Yeah, so I wouldn't try to do that because it's just going to take too long. But based on the things that we spoke about, you can start to identify if they're going through it or not. Or you can have an educated guess. Targeted injury prevention programs. There's some out there, like the 11 plus, etc. Educating key stakeholders like players, coaches, or parents about the effects of maturation and injury burden. Load management strategies and utilising maturity characterised strengths such as biobanding, which is what I spoke about, kind of binding together, and competitions, and then start early. It's really hard. I attended a conference on athletic development, and I think it was Bath University talking about it's really difficult when those universities and they offer scholarship programs, players come through and they've never done any strength and conditioning before. They would have to start almost at the same level as what these 10-year-olds are doing. Obviously they go through it a little bit quicker, but the level, it's like you're having to teach them how to move first before you can even load them. They're already miles behind. And they're not as robust. So you need to start as early as possible. That would be my advice. All right, any questions on that? I've covered a lot of information there. I've tried to whiz through it, but there's a lot of information there. So any questions, anything that kind of didn't make sense or... No? Okay.
I think it's really interesting. I coach girls. I've been coaching for the last 3 years, and when I started coaching, they were under 11. They're now under 14, and seeing the difference in them, all the things you just shared, it's kind of getting me thinking about where the different players are at in terms of, and some of them being early developers and things like that. So it's really interesting. I think it's a lot to think about. And they'll lose power. It's really hard psychologically for them, because when I said about your sport chooses you, it's not until you hit that stage that actually you don't know whether they're going to be suited for that sport or not, because all of a sudden, you got someone that's really into basketball and then they're not going to grow. You kind of guess by the parents, by the way. Look at the parents, and if they're really short, then probably not going to be an elite basketball player. But there's lots of other sports where that does happen. But that's why it's important to have that multidisciplinary approach where they're playing lots of different sports. And that's a big part of talent ID as well. But again, just gets us thinking about what's going on, what stage are they at, and having those conversations is really important. Really important. The amount of females that we can potentially keep in sport just through being aware and having those conversations as coaches is like, okay, are you aware you might be going through, and it takes a little bit of skill in terms of how you approach it, and some coaches are better at it than others, but it might be a parent,
It might be better for us to
talk
deal
to
with the parents.
I'm just thinking from personal experience, my own daughter, she lost a lot of confidence because she has become slower and she's lost some power. And up until now, I thought maybe it was more around her mindset, and she'd lost a lot of confidence. I thought, oh no, she's losing confidence due to whatever reason, and that's meant she's now not putting in as much effort, so she's not got the power or the speed. But actually, it could be the other way around. It could be that she's losing the power and the speed just because of her body developing, and then she's then losing a bit of confidence because of that. And I'm thinking about other girls, Bambi on ice, that's such a funny expression, because I've used that myself in the last couple of years when talking privately with the guy I coach with, and a couple of our girls did that. I mean, one shot up to 6'1", and she for a while was like Bambi on ice, and she'd lost a lot of her skill and that sort of thing, and she's come through the other side of that, I think, now, and is now kind of developing her skills again.
You think about it again, start early. It's like learning a language. The neuroplasticity is higher at an earlier age. So if we can get them to move better in lots of different ways before they go through that, then by the time they go through it, it's not going to be as difficult because they move so much better anyway. So it puts them in a better position to then go and work on those skills a little bit.
Our girls only started playing when they were sort of 10, 11. We've been doing a Wildcat session now for getting girls into football earlier, so they're starting from the age of 5, and we're now finding that as the newer teams are coming through, but the girls are just that much more able to pick up the game of football because they've been playing for so many more years at a younger age. So.
Yeah, so that neuroplasticity to develop all those skills definitely, and then from an injury prevention standpoint as well. No, for sure. If you have any other questions at any point, just ask them, because there'll be some good case studies and things that you'll probably see now going on. And again, sometimes we think they're developing attitude, and we think they're turning into naughty kids. They're just going through that period where actually all of a sudden they're not as good. You think if I just all of a sudden made you taller and asked you to kick a football, you'd probably be all over the shop. So again, those strategies we need to put in place. Can we slow things down? Can we get them to work technically with another coach, or do different types of drills where we're slowing things down? They're now able to move their body mass and take them to more closed drills as opposed to open drills and things like that.